What happens when Florence Pugh, Hollywood's rising storm of power and authenticity, steps onto The View, only to collide with Joy Behar's sharp-tongued opinions? The answer? Chaos, tension, and a moment that had audiences gripping their armrests and the internet in absolute meltdown. The air inside the studio that morning felt unusually charged. Florence sat poised, her short blonde hair perfectly tousled, her black blazer catching the stage lights. Joy Behar leaned forward in her chair, her expression unreadable. It was supposed to be a light-hearted interview about Florence's new film, something about courage and reinvention. But beneath the smiles, something was brewing. Sunny Hostin started the segment smoothly. So, Florence, this new film of yours, some say it's your boldest yet. You've never shied away from showing vulnerability on screen. Do you think Hollywood appreciates that? Florence smiled, her British accent soft but firm. I think the industry likes vulnerability until it becomes inconvenient. Then they call it difficult. A light chuckle swept through the audience, but not from Joy. Joy Behar tilted her head slightly, lips pursed. Inconvenient, huh? Well, maybe it's not the industry, Florence. Maybe it's just that people get tired of celebrities acting like they're victims all the time. The crowd went quiet. Florence's eyes flicked toward Joy, her expression tightening for just a second before she composed herself. I don't think speaking about real experiences makes anyone a victim, Joy. I think it makes us human. Joy leaned back, her voice dripping with the kind of sarcasm that's made her infamous. Oh, I'm all for being human, darling. But it seems every actor these days wants an award just for crying about Hollywood being mean. Laughter erupted, uneasy, divided. Florence blinked slowly, her jaw tightening. The camera caught it, the shift from grace to grit. Joy, with respect, I've worked my entire career to tell stories that mean something. And if that threatens your idea of entertainment, maybe you're not watching close enough. Whoopi Goldberg shot a glance between them, muttering a quiet, okay, trying to defuse the moment. But Florence wasn't done. She leaned forward, her tone low but fierce. You know, it's funny. You can joke about victims on TV, but some of us live through the headlines you laugh at. It's not a punchline, it's our lives. Joy's eyes narrowed. Oh, don't get dramatic, Florence. It's The View, not therapy. Gasps spread across the audience. Florence froze for a beat, her lips parting slightly. The moment hung heavy in the air, so sharp it could slice through the studio lights. Florence finally said, then maybe The View should try listening once in a while. The crowd reacted, a blend of applause and stunned silence. The camera caught Sunny's wide eyes, Sarah's awkward smile, and Whoopi's subtle nod, as if she knew this was going to be one for the books. The segment was supposed to last 10 minutes. It lasted nearly 20. When they cut to commercial, the tension didn't fade. It thickened. Florence adjusted her mic, refusing to look at Joy. Joy muttered something under her breath, but Florence didn't respond. She didn't need to. The audience already sensed what had just happened. A generational clash, an emotional showdown between old-school snark and new-age sincerity. When the cameras rolled again, Florence smiled, coldly, beautifully, like someone who'd already decided she wouldn't back down. The next segment began with Whoopi's attempt to lighten the mood, but Florence was still simmering beneath her calm exterior. So, Whoopi said, Florence, this movie touches on empowerment and resilience. After everything that's happened in the last few years, how has your perspective changed? Florence took a breath, exhaling slowly. Resilience isn't about staying quiet to keep people comfortable. It's about standing your ground, even when someone tells you to tone it down. The audience clapped, but Joy wasn't done either. She laughed, not kindly but sharply. Well, Florence, you've certainly got that part mastered. Standing your ground, even when no one asked for it. Sunny shot her a look, murmuring, Joy, but it was too late. Florence turned to Joy, her voice steady. Actually, Joy, that's the problem. No one asks for it, but sometimes people need to hear it. The studio fell silent again. Florence continued, her words measured, her gaze unwavering. I grew up watching women like you, thinking confidence came from being the loudest voice in the room. But maybe confidence is also about knowing when to listen. Joy smirked, clearly irritated. Oh, come on. You're preaching to the choir. I've been doing this longer than you've been alive. Florence nodded slightly. Exactly. Maybe that's why it's time for new voices. The audience gasped again. It wasn't shouting. It wasn't chaos. It was the calm, deliberate dismantling of an ego. Florence wasn't raising her voice. She didn't need to. The silence she commanded said more than any punchline ever could. Whoopi tried to move on, but the dynamic on that couch had shifted completely. Florence's composure made Joy look flustered for the first time in a long while. The tension wasn't just palpable, it was cinematic. The crowd knew they were witnessing something that would replay endlessly online. By the time the credits rolled, Joy forced a smile, muttering, "Well, that was fun." Florence simply smiled back. It was enlightening. The show ended, but the storm had just begun. Within hours, the internet was ablaze. Clips flooded Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube. Florence Pugh destroys Joy Behar on The View trended for hours. Fans called Florence fearless. Others called her disrespectful. But the narrative was clear, something in that studio had shifted. Behind the scenes, sources said Joy was livid, feeling ambushed and disrespected. Florence, meanwhile, left the building calm, collected, her team surrounding her like she'd just won a silent war. A leaked video showed her in the hallway saying, "If standing up for yourself makes people uncomfortable, you're probably doing something right." By the next morning, news outlets everywhere had picked it up. Variety, ET people, each spinning the story differently. Some defended Joy's bluntness. Others hailed Florence as the face of a new, fearless Hollywood. Fans flooded The View's Instagram page with comments. She put Joy in her place. Florence handled that like a queen. Joy Behar needs to learn when to stop. But others wrote, "Joy's just being Joy. That's her job." It became the internet's newest cultural divide. Days later, Whoopi was asked about the confrontation in an interview. She simply said, "Look, that's what happens when strong women talk. It gets loud." Florence, for her part, never addressed it directly. Instead, during a press junket a week later, she was asked if she regretted what happened. She smiled, that same unshakable calm in her eyes. "No, I think it was an honest moment. And honesty doesn't need regret." That line alone became a headline. As the dust settled, it wasn't just about The View anymore. It was about what it meant to speak your truth, even in uncomfortable rooms. Florence didn't just clap back. She changed the tone of the conversation. And that's exactly what people remembered. If you were watching that day, what did you think? Was Florence right to stand her ground? Or did Joy's blunt humor cross a line? Let me know in the comments below. And if you love seeing these powerful, dramatic celebrity moments come to life, make sure you're subscribed to Talk Narrative and hit the bell icon, because more explosive stories are coming your way. This is Talk Narrative, where Hollywood's calmest smiles hide the fiercest storms. The studio lights came back on after the commercial break, but the air hadn't cooled. If anything, it had thickened. Florence Pugh sat quietly, adjusting the lapel of her blazer as producers whispered directions through the earpieces of the hosts. Joy Behar was still talking to Sunny Hostin in low tones, her face tight with irritation. The audience could feel it. Something had shifted during the last segment, and the crowd, once cheerful, now watched with uneasy fascination. Whoopi Goldberg, trying to ease the tension, gave the signal to start. "Welcome back to The View. We're here with Florence Pugh, whose new film Veil of Courage hits theaters this week." Florence smiled politely, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of exhaustion. Joy leaned forward again, voice syrupy sweet. "So Florence," she said, "this film of yours, it's about a woman breaking free from control, right? Sounds a bit familiar." There was a ripple of laughter, but it wasn't kind. Florence's lips pressed together, the smile tightening. "If you're implying something, Joy, you might as well say it." Joy chuckled, unbothered. "Well, let's just say you've had a lot to say about control lately. You don't think people might see you as a little, what's the word, defensive?" The audience murmured. Florence tilted her head slightly, studying Joy like she was dissecting a roll. "Defensive? No, just unwilling to be dismissed." "Dismissed?" Joy repeated, her voice rising. "Oh, please. You're sitting on The View. Nobody's dismissing you. We're just talking." Florence's eyes flicked toward her. "You're not talking, Joy. You're trying to frame me." The room went still again. Whoopi's hand went up slightly, like a referee stepping between two boxers. "All right, ladies, let's take a breath. Florence, Joy, remember, people are watching us at home having their morning coffee, all right?" But the moment had already taken a life of its own. Florence leaned back, exhaling quietly, her voice steady but sharp. I've done dozens of interviews for this film. No one's asked me if I'm defensive. Only here." Joy shot back. "Maybe that's because we're the only ones who tell it like it is." Florence's gaze didn't flinch. "Or maybe you're the only ones still confusing honesty with cruelty." The audience gasped. A few claps echoed from the back row. Sunny tried to step in. Let's not turn this into a boxing match. Florence interrupted softly. Oh, it's not a match. That would require both sides to listen. A soft laugh rippled through the studio, this time directed at Joy. Even Sarah Haynes, sitting between Sunny and Whoopi, shifted uncomfortably, covering a smile behind her mug. Joy's expression hardened. You're young, she said flatly. You'll learn that not everyone who disagrees with you is cruel. Florence nodded, but her eyes were calm, almost eerily calm. And you'll learn that not everyone who challenges you is wrong. The room erupted in applause this time. Whoopi sighed, muttering under her breath. Oh Lord, here we go. The director's voice crackled in the host's earpieces. Keep it going, ratings gold. Joy laughed, but it didn't reach her eyes. You've got quite the attitude, Florence. I can see why you get along so well with your characters. Florence smiled faintly. That's because they all stand up for themselves, too. That line hit like a spark in dry grass. Joy rolled her eyes, her tone clipped. Well, I hope your fans appreciate that as much as you do. Florence leaned forward slightly. They do, Joy, because they understand the difference between being outspoken and being out of touch. The audience clapped again, this time louder, longer. Whoopi tried to speak over them. Okay, let's take a question from the audience before this turns into the Hunger Games. A young woman in the crowd raised her hand nervously. Florence, I just wanted to say, it's refreshing to see someone stand up for themselves. You don't see that much here. The audience laughed knowingly. Florence smiled warmly at her. Thank you. That means a lot. Joy's eyes darted toward the woman. Oh, come on, it's not that serious. We're just talking. People act like disagreement is a crime these days. Florence responded softly but firmly. It's not disagreement, Joy. It's tone. There's a difference. That single line silenced the studio. Florence wasn't raising her voice. She didn't need to. Her composure alone was disarming. Whoopi finally managed to step in, chuckling. All right. Before we turn into a philosophy class, let's play a quick clip from Veil of Courage. Maybe we'll all cool down for 2 minutes. The screen behind them flickered to life. A dramatic scene from the movie played. Florence's character standing her ground against a manipulative boss. The irony was impossible to ignore. The crowd watched, completely drawn in. When the clip ended, Florence's performance had the audience applauding. Whoopi smiled. Now that is what I'm talking about. Powerful stuff. Florence grinned modestly. Thank you. I just wanted to show what resilience looks like, without having to shout about it. Joy leaned back, crossing her arms. Well, you've certainly made your point today. Florence turned her head toward her, her tone cool and resolute. And you've certainly proven it. A few gasps, a few cheers, and then silence. It was one of those moments where you could almost hear the electricity in the air. The cameras cut to Whoopi's neutral smile as she said, and on that note, we'll be right back with more of The View. Don't go anywhere. The audience applauded. But behind the polite clapping, everyone could feel it. The storm wasn't over. It was just catching its breath. As the cameras faded to black, Joy muttered something under her breath. Florence heard it. She didn't respond. She simply smiled, reached for her water, and said quietly, That's the thing about storms, Joy. They clear the air. Joy didn't reply. She didn't have to. The look on her face said it all. The audience hadn't seen the last of this. Not by a long shot. The cameras returned from commercial, but the audience could sense it. Whatever simmered between Florence Pugh and Joy Behar hadn't cooled off. If anything, it was on the edge of boiling. Whoopi tried to steer things back into safer waters. All right, she began, smiling that weary I've seen it all smile. We've talked about Veil of Courage. We've talked about Hollywood. Let's talk about something light. Florence, you've been named one of Time's most influential people of the year. How does that feel? Florence's expression softened slightly. It's surreal, honestly. But I don't think influence means power. It means responsibility. It means using your voice for something real. Sunny nodded appreciatively. That's beautifully said. But before the warmth could settle, Joy interjected, her tone dry. Oh, come on. You can't say things like that and not admit it feels good. Everyone loves being celebrated. That's half the reason people get into show business, isn't it? Florence turned toward her slowly, her voice calm but laced with steel. I didn't get into this business for celebration, Joy. I got into it to tell the truth, even when people like you laugh at it. The audience gasped. A low murmur rippled across the studio. Joy blinked, momentarily caught off guard. People like me? Florence nodded. Yes. The ones who pretend cynicism is wisdom. It hit hard. Even Whoopi looked stunned for a beat before letting out a low whistle. Phew, okay. We're really going there today. But Joy wasn't the type to back down. She crossed her arms, her tone sharpening. You know, Florence, not everyone's your enemy. Sometimes a joke is just a joke. You don't have to turn everything into a moral lesson. Florence smiled faintly, but it wasn't amusement, it was control. And sometimes a joke hides what people really think. Joy's eyes flashed. Oh, please don't psychoanalyze me, sweetheart. I've been around long enough to know when someone's just being oversensitive. Florence leaned forward slightly, her voice dropping low enough that it forced the entire room to lean in. And I've been around long enough to know when someone's hiding behind a microphone. The audience reacted instantly, half cheers, half gasps. Whoopi rubbed her temples. Can somebody get me some popcorn? She muttered. Sunny tried again to play peacemaker. Ladies, let's not lose the message here. Florence, Joy, this is a conversation, not a competition. Florence nodded politely. Of course. I'm just answering the questions I'm asked. Joy gave a small, sarcastic laugh. You're answering questions I didn't ask too. Florence's gaze didn't waver. Maybe those are the ones that needed answers. That was it. The crowd erupted, some clapping, others murmuring nervously. Whoopi sighed, muttering something about the network getting flooded with calls. Sarah Haynes tried to break the tension. You two have great chemistry, by the way. Florence turned to her, smiling. That's one word for it. Even that line had bite. The producers signaled from offstage to wrap the segment, but Whoopi ignored them for the moment. All right, she said. Let's finish this strong. Florence, what do you want audiences to take away from Veil of Courage? Florence looked directly into the camera, her tone softer now, measured, grounded. That being kind doesn't mean being silent. That strength doesn't always roar. It just refuses to shrink. The applause came instantly. Genuine, heartfelt. Even Joy hesitated, her expression softening just a fraction. But then, just as the tension seemed to ease, Joy muttered under her breath, loud enough for her mic to catch. Yeah, strength and a good PR team. The audience reacted audibly. Whoopi's head dropped into her hands. Oh, Lord, Joy. Florence blinked, clearly taken aback. For a second, she said nothing. Then she leaned forward, her tone cutting through the noise. You know, Joy, maybe people wouldn't need PR if shows like this didn't twist honesty into entertainment. The crowd went wild, cheers, whistles, applause. Joy forced a laugh, but it sounded thin. Whoopi finally stood, half laughing, half exasperated. Okay, we're cutting to break before the set catches fire. The music played, the cameras pulled back, and the lights dimmed, but the tension didn't fade. When the mics went off, Joy leaned slightly toward Florence. You're really something, huh? Florence, still calm, replied. You too. Just in a different century. Joy froze for half a second, then forced a smirk. Careful, kid. I've outlasted a lot of loud mouths. Florence stood, straightening her jacket. I'm not loud, Joy. I'm clear. And with that, she walked off the set for a quick backstage break, leaving a stunned silence behind her. Sunny turned to Joy. You pushed too hard. Joy waved her off. Oh, please. If she can't handle a few jokes, she shouldn't come on live TV. Whoopi sighed deeply, shaking her head. Nah, Joy. You missed the point. That wasn't about jokes. That was about respect. Joy rolled her eyes, but even she seemed rattled. For the first time in years, the View's queen of quips had met her match, and the audience knew it. The studio whispered like a storm gathering strength. No one said it out loud, but everyone knew. Florence Pugh had just turned the View into a battlefield. And the real explosion was still to come. The next morning, the internet was already ablaze. Every major entertainment outlet, from Variety to TMZ, was looping that now infamous moment between Florence Pugh and Joy Behar. Clips of the confrontation flooded social media feeds with captions like, Florence Pugh puts Joy Behar in her place, and tension erupts on The View. Florence fights back. The footage spread like wildfire. Florence's calm defiance, Joy's biting sarcasm, Whoopi's exasperated sighs. It was the perfect cocktail for online chaos. Millions of people replayed the exchange frame by frame, analyzing every blink, every smirk, every micro-expression. By mid-morning, Hashtag Florence Pugh and hashtag The View were trending globally. Fans hailed Florence as the new voice of unapologetic honesty. One viral tweet read, "Florence didn't just defend herself, she defended every woman who's been told to tone it down." But Joy's supporters weren't silent either. Some claimed Florence had overreacted, that she'd turned a harmless comment into a public power play. Others insisted Joy was just being Joy, the blunt, no-filter veteran of daytime TV. Even The View's official YouTube upload hit millions of views in a matter of hours. The comments section was a digital war zone. Florence handled that with class. Pure composure under fire. Joy crossed the line and couldn't handle being called out. This is why people love Florence. She says what everyone else is afraid to. Joy didn't deserve that level of disrespect. This is daytime TV, not a drama rehearsal. Behind the scenes, ABC executives were reportedly ecstatic. Ratings had spiked higher than any episode in months. But Joy wasn't happy. According to a production insider, she felt blindsided, claiming Florence came in ready for a fight. Meanwhile, Florence's team kept quiet. No statements, no clarifications, just silence. That silence, of course, only fueled the intrigue. 2 days later, Florence broke it subtly. She appeared on a red carpet in Los Angeles for the premiere of Veil of Courage. Cameras flashed as she walked gracefully toward reporters. When asked about The View, her answer was measured, deliberate. "I don't regret anything," she said. "Conversations can get uncomfortable, but that's where honesty lives. And sometimes people need to hear what they've been avoiding." It was the kind of line that instantly became a quote card online, plastered across fan pages and entertainment accounts. The moment cemented Florence as not just an actress, but a symbol of unshakable poise, of strength and grace, of standing tall even when the world tries to shrink you. Meanwhile, Joy addressed the situation on The View days later with her trademark shrug. "People keep asking if I'm upset about what happened. I'm not upset. Florence and I had a lively exchange. That's what we do here. It's called The View, not The Agree." The audience laughed, but it felt forced, muted. The clip went viral again, but this time, the comments weren't as forgiving. People could sense the defensiveness, the edge behind her humor. Sunny Hostin later admitted in an interview, "That day was tense, but Florence stood her ground with grace. She didn't yell. She didn't insult. She just held her space. You don't see that often. And that's what made it unforgettable." Florence Pugh had done what few guests ever dared to do: challenge The View's hierarchy in real time and win. Not with anger, not with arrogance, but with composure that cut sharper than any insult could. The aftermath became a cultural mirror. It wasn't just about Joy and Florence anymore. It was about the generational divide between those who use humor to deflect and those who use honesty to confront. It was about women's voices, loud, soft, or steady, and how society reacts when those voices stop apologizing. Clips of Florence's calm response were re-edited with cinematic music, turning her into a kind of pop culture heroine. TikTokers reenacted the exchange. Twitter declared her the calmest storm Hollywood's ever seen. Joy's defenders argued that she was just doing her job, but even they couldn't deny it. Florence's silence had been louder than Joy's jokes. Weeks later, Florence posted a single photo on Instagram, just a simple image of her sipping tea with the caption, "No hard feelings, just lessons learned." Over 1 million likes, tens of thousands of comments, and among them, one top comment that captured the sentiment of the entire internet. Florence didn't walk into The View for promotion. She walked in to make history. The story didn't fade, it evolved. The View's producers reportedly invited her back for a follow-up segment, but Florence declined, choosing to let her words stand untouched. She'd said what she needed to say, and everyone had heard it loud and clear. In the end, this wasn't just a viral TV moment. It was a reminder that authenticity can shake the loudest rooms, that calm conviction can silence arrogance, and that the truth, when spoken without fear, echoes longer than any applause. Because that's what Florence Pugh did that day. She didn't shout, she didn't crumble. She simply looked power in the face and smiled. And that's why the world couldn't stop watching. So now, it's your turn. What do you think? Was Florence right to stand her ground? Or did Joy's blunt humor simply go too far? Share your thoughts down in the comments below. And don't forget, subscribe to Talk Narrative for more of these explosive cinematic moments that reveal what really happens when the cameras are rolling and the masks come off. This is Talk Narrative, where every word, every stare, and every silence tells a story Hollywood will never forget.